And welcome. And we, of course, start off with a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
All right, and there we are. And we are on the second verse. We're on the second verse. It was a very lengthy Rashi, as you can see. All this stuff here. All right. I am thinking perhaps to do this. There is a major Torah Temimah on this, where he discusses the process of drashing out things. But I'm just debating with myself whether we should continue with Deuteronomy. Maybe I will do that. And if we have time, I'll go back and look at the Torah Temimah. So second verse. So we had this first verse, as you remember yesterday, that mentioned all these place names. And Rashi explained that it's really a code and they are a veiled reference to places where the Israelites broke faith with God. That the very book of Devarim suggests a great correction. Achat asar yom, 11 days, mechorev, from Chorev, from Mount Chorev. We did the verse, but I don't think we did the Rashi on it. Derech Har Seir, by way of Mount Seir, ad Kadesh Barnea, until you reach Kadesh Barnea, which I believe is just right on the outskirts of the land of Canaan. Here we go. Here we are. Achad asar yom mechorev. It is 11 days from Sinai, from Chorev. Amar lahem Moshe. Moses said to them, Re'u, look, ma shegaramtem, what you caused. Ein lachem derech tzara mechorev lekadesh barnea. You do not have a shorter way from Chorev to Kadesh Barnea, kederech har Seir, like the journey by way of Mount Seir. V'af hu ma'alach yud aleph yom. And even that short journey is 11 days, just takes 11 days. V'atem halachtem oto b'shlosha yamim. But you were able to traverse it in 3 days. Shahare, because, and he proves this, be'esrim be'iyar, on the 20th day of Iyar, that's the second month, Nisan, Iyar, right? It's the month after Nisan. The Nisan is the month in which Pesach occurs. So the 21st of Iyar, Nas'u me Chorev, they journeyed from Chorev. How do we know this? Shne'emar, it says, Numbers 10, verse 11, Vayhi bashana hashenit, and it was in the second year, Vachodesh hasheni, in the second month, right? So that would make it Iyar. Be'esrim bachodesh, on the 20th day of the month, Vagomer, etc. Ubekoftet b'sivan, and on the 29th of Sivan, on 29th of Sivan, Shalchu et hameraglim, they sent off the spies, mi Kadesh Barnea, from Kadesh Barnea. Say mehem shloshim yom, you have to subtract from that. So I don't have a table here, but okay, so Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, right? So Nisan, Iyar, we said that they left on the 20th of Iyar, and that would allow, so if they're 29 days in Iyar, that would be 19 days, plus another 29 days. So 19 and 29 is how much? It's 48, is it? 48? Okay, there's no response there. Is my arithmetic wrong? I don't hear anybody. Uh,
Well, we mute ourselves so we
I
can,
know. So just press your space bar. Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay. Thank you. So they on the 29th of Sivan, they sent off the spies from Kadesh Barnea. Say mehem shloshim yom. So you have to subtract from that the 30 days she'asu b'kvurot hata'ava, in which they encamped at kvurot hata'ava. So what's 30 from 48? So you're left with 18 there. She'achlu habasar chodesh yamim, because it says there that they ate the flesh in Kivrot HaTa'ava for 30 days. And another Veshiva Yamim Shasu B'Chatzerot, and another 7 days that they stayed in Chatzerot, Lahasger Sham Miriam. Remember, it says Miriam there, it says Miriam should be sequestered for 7 days. She was leprous. She was, there's a whole story there. And so that's another 7 days. So 7 days from, did we have 18 there? So
Yeah.
that's 11 days. Nimtza b'shlosha yamim. So you figure it out. Well, I'm not sure how my arithmetic must not be correct, okay? That 3 days halchu kol oto haderech, that they went that entire way. So we'll have to go back and check my arithmetic.
Okay, well, okay, you said on ER 20 is where they start off, correct?
Yes, they do. Oh,
And
that
then
would make
there's
9 days, sorry.
9 days,
9
not,
days.
yes,
Right,
that's
so it's
where it was.
38, right. Now
Okay.
it's going to work out, correct. That's where I went wrong, yeah. Okay, so this is how he's done the calculation, right? Chol oto haderech, that entire distance. V'chol kach hayta shchina mitlabetet bishvilchem, and the shchina, the divine presence, was so excited on your account, right? Desirous on your account. Lemaher biadchem la'aretz, to bring you to the land of Israel. So look at this. Even though it takes 11 days under normal circumstances, Moses say, to travel from Chorev to Kadesh Barnea. In fact, you journeyed just 3 days. It just took you 3 days of journey, of actual travel time. Because God wanted you to get there so much. And on account of the fact that you ruined things, remember, because what happened at Kadesh Barnea? They sent off the 12 spies, and that's when they said they would not be able to conquer the land, and they wanted to go back to Egypt, and they said it was better we should die in the desert than have to try and conquer the land of Canaan. And God said, you asked for it, you got it. So Moses is telling them here, look at this. Look at the extremes. On the one hand, had you been willing to do it, look at the degree to which God was supporting and wanted this for you, and look at how you behaved, and how to the degree to which you ruined this. And because you ruined it, Heisev etchem tzvivot har Seir, he forced you to traverse around the Mount Seir, Arba'im Shana, for 40 years. So 3 days compared to 40 years. Yes?
The 30 days was for, why did they stay still for 30 days? I missed that.
Oh, that was because at that particular place, they complained that they missed the meat and the flesh pots of Egypt, okay?
Okay.
And I think that's when God sent all this quail, you know, to the camp, and they wound up eating it for 30 days, I think. Was it?
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and check the actual reference. Okay. So I'm going to keep going with this, right?
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Vayhi ba'arba'im shana, and it was in the 40th year, ba'ashtei asar chodesh, in the 11th month, be'echad lachodesh, on the 1st of the month. Diber Moshe, Moses spoke el bnei Israel, to the children of Israel, kechol asher tzivah Hashem oto alehem, just as the Lord had commanded him regarding them. Vayhi ba'arba'im shana. So it was in the 40th year, b'ashtei asar chodesh, in the 11th month, b'echad lachodesh, on the first of that month. So the 11th month, let's see.
Adar,
No, that's the 12th month.
12th month. Oh, back up one.
Shvat.
Oh, Shvat.
So it's on the 1st of Shvat, Moses starts to talk to them. Melamed. So this teaches you, Shelo richan ela samuch lamita. He only started to correct them close to his death. Remember, I made an allusion to this yesterday. Mimi lamad. So who did he learn this from? That he shouldn't correct them until he was about to depart the world. He learned Yaakov. He learned from Jacob, the patriarch. Shelo hochiach et panav, because he did not reprove his sons, correct his sons, ela samuch lamita, except as he drew near to die. Amar, he said, Ruvain beni, Reuven, my son, ani omer lacha, I'm going to tell you, mipnei ma lo hochachticha kol hashanim halalu. Why did I not correct you all these years? Kedei shelo tanicheni, so that you don't just leave me. V'telech v'tilbak be'esav, and go and connect yourself with Esau, Achi, my brother. Umipnei arba dvarim, and on account of 4 reasons, ein mochichim et ha'adam ela samuch lamita, you only make this kind of correction to a person close to one's departure from the world. So, kedei shelo yehe mochicho v'chozer. So one reason is that if you correct him early on, you're going to keep on correcting him every time, and you don't want to keep on correcting, right? You don't want to do that. It starts to lose effectiveness. Umochicho shelo yehe chavero. Okay, sorry. Mochicho v'chozer umochicho. That's where this ends, right? Correct him, and once again correct him. Number 2. V'shelo yehe chavero ro'ehu, so that, and also you don't want his friend to see him, umitbayesh mimenu, and be ashamed of him. Okay, and it could mean that the person feels ashamed, or the other person feels ashamed, etc. Kedeita besifrei, and this is, Rashi doesn't give us all 4 reasons. Okay. But he gives us the reference to do our homework. Okay. V'chein Yehoshua, and we have other examples. Joshua, lo hochiach et Yisrael. He did not correct the Jewish people, ela samuch lamita, except when he drew near to die. V'chein Shmuel, and likewise Samuel, the prophet Samuel. Shne'emar, as it says, Shmuel Aleph, that's what this stands for, the first book of Samuel, Yud Bet, chapter 12. Hineni enubi, he says to them, he gathers the Israelites and says, behold, answer me. In other words, if what I'm saying to you, you argue, you don't feel I'm right, tell me. And of course, he goes ahead and just tells them the way they've been faithless. V'chein David et Shlomo beno, and likewise, as David was dying, he had words of correction for Solomon, his son. And that's in Kings 1, Melachim Aleph, chapter 2. Acharei hakoto, so this all happened after he had beaten et Sichon melech ha'Emori, Sichon the Amorite king, Asher Yoshev becheshbon, who dwelt in Cheshbon, ve'et Og, and Og melech haBashan. These 2 kings, Og king of Bashan, Asher Yoshev ba'Ashtarot be'Edrei, who lived in Ashtarot and Edrei, or in Edrei. Acharei hakoto, after he had destroyed. Amar Moshe, so this Moses thought to himself, Im ani mochicham kodem, if I correct them before sheyikansu lektzat haaretz, to at least a little part of the land, Yomru, they're going to say, Ma lazeh aleinu, what business does this guy have to talk to us like this? What has he got against us? Ma hitiv lanu, what good did he do for us? Right, like Moses hadn't done any good for them up to that point. But remember, the attitude is, what have you done for me lately? Right? Isn't that the philosophy? So unless I actually show them how they could, actually destroy these strong kings, and the Sichon and Og were very powerful kings, Eino ba ela lekanter. So this is what the people will be thinking. He's only coming to argue with us, to be carping, ulimtso ilah, and to find an excuse, she'ein bo koach, because he doesn't have the power, lahachnisenu la'aretz, to bring us into the land. Lefichach, and for that reason, himtid anshe hipil Sichon ve'og. He waited until he had overthrown Sichon and Og lifnehem, before them, v'horisham et artzam, and had given their land as to them, to the Israelites. And only after that he corrected them. He spoke these words of correction. So Sichon and Og, etc., Asher Yoshev, etc., and this he's taking from the Sifrei. Ilu lo haya Sichon kasher, even if Sichon were not powerful, v'hara sharui b'cheshbon, but he was established in Cheshbon, haya kasher, it would have been very hard to overcome him. In other words, the strategic position of Cheshbon was such, right, that it would have made it, even if Sichon hadn't been that strong himself, it would have been very difficult to conquer him. Shehamedina kasha, because the territory itself is very difficult to traverse, etc., etc. The ilu haita ir acheret, and if it were a different city, the Sichon sharui betocha, and Sichon were placed there, haita kasher, it would have been still very, very difficult to overthrow him. Sha'melech kasher, because the king himself is powerful. Alachat kama v'chama. So how much the more so is this the case? Shehamelech kasher, when the sovereign is powerful, v'hamedina kasha, and the country in which he's living is so hard to deal with. That's something that we don't always think about, when we think about war and stuff like that. But let me tell you, look at what happened to the German troops in Russia, right? There's an example, right? So it's all part of the strategy that goes into waging war. Asher Yoshev ba'ashtarot. So this is referring to Og, who dwells in Ashtarot. Again, so in other words, what Rashi's trying to point out is, why are they giving you these details about where these kings were located? Because we know this already from Numbers. Why the repetition? And so he's saying, well, this is the point that the Torah wants to make here, that Moses is trying to get across. Hamelech kasher, the king is powerful, the sovereign is powerful, v'hamedina kasha, and the countryside itself is very difficult to wage war in. Another word for Ashtarot. So this word Ashtarot, the name of the place, Hu Lashon Tzukin. So I believe this, he's saying, this has the connotation of crags, the koshi, and difficulty. Kamo Ashtarot Karnayim. So, for example, it says there's a place called Ashtanot Karnayim. Karnayim are horns. For Ashtarot and Ashtarot, Zehu Ashtarot Karnayim. And this Ashtarot that they're talking about is Ashtarot Karnayim. Shahayu Sham Riphaim, because the Riphaim lived there, and the Riphaim were giants, right? Very powerful beings. Shehika Amraphel, whom Amraphel destroyed. And Amraphel is mentioned back in Genesis in the story of Abraham and the 4 kings versus the 5 kings. It's back, and he tells you back in Genesis chapter 14. And there it tells you explicitly that Amraphel, these other kings of his, defeated the Rephaim. Here's the verse. Vayaku et Rephaim ba'ashtarot karnaim. And they destroyed the Rephaim who were living in Ashtarot Karnaim. The Og, and what about Og? Nimlat mehem. He escaped. Og was an escapee. Shne'emar, as it states in Genesis 13, Vayavo hapalit. And the one who escaped came. It doesn't mention Og there, but its tradition understands, because it mentions someone from those people showed up to tell Abraham what had happened, and that tradition has it that is Og. The Omer, okay, here we go. Here's his proof. But later, he's talking about Deuteronomy chapter 3. Ki rak Og melech habashan nishar meyeter harephaim. So there he's connected the verse to tell you why it's Og who's considered to be the one who escaped. Only, the verse says, for only Og, king of Bashan, remained from those Rephaim who were left over. Be'edrei, in Edrei, Shem HaMalchut. That's the name of the kingdom. So there's a little footnote here, and it just says Sarich Lomar. He's saying a more correct version of this is Makom HaMilchama, which would mean the place of battle. This was the place of battle, and possibly referring to that original battle that, the battle that the Israelites waged against Og. On to verse 5. Be'ever Hayadin, on the other side of the Jordan. So I believe this would refer to the east side of the Jordan. If you have in your minds, if you can visualize that part of the world. Be'eretz Moav, in the land of Moab. Ho'il Moshe began Ba'er et HaTorah Hazot, to explain this Torah, Lamor, saying. So let's see where we are. I think we're actually, yeah. Question? Okay, I've got this short verse here. Ho'il, and then I will stop the share. Ho'il began. Hitchil, right? Ho'il is not as common a word as hitchil. Latchil means to begin, but that's what it means here. And he gives an example, Kamor Bereshit Yod-Chet in Genesis chapter 18, Hina Ho'alti. This is Abraham speaking to God about the people in Sodom to spare those cities. And Abraham says to God, behold, since I have started, Ho'alti. Ba'er et Torah, to explain the Torah, B'shiv'im lashon, in 70 languages. He explained it to them. So now, generally, when they talk about 70 languages, they're referring to the languages of the world, of the earth. However, I mean, I can't imagine that all of them. So we're speaking 70 languages all around, or individuals, they're people. Judith, did you want to comment on that?
I said they heard it in 70 languages. I don't.
Okay. So
that's what I'm thinking. They might have heard it in the language that they felt akin to.
So what I'm wondering is, the ways in which the Torah is a very dense text, meaning that there are lots of meanings that you can get out of it. It's so densely written, and that maybe the Shiv'im Lashon has to do with the various ways in which he explained it, even if it took 70 times to explain something. Now, I mean, I'm going a little bit on a limb there, but I wonder to myself, given the fact that the simple pshat isn't so easy to hold on to, and I'm going to stop the share right here. All right. So, hi, Ken. Good to see you.
Hey, hello. Had a question.
Sure.
I wasn't, thinking about the languages or Sodom and Gomorrah. I was kind of focused on peace and war. Kind of wondering, like, it's talking about war. So I'm assuming that peace is preferable, obviously, to war, right? In the Bible. And so I'm wondering how. I'm just kind of curious as your thoughts about that, peace and war.
So it's okay. It says in Ecclesiastes, there's a time for war and a time for peace. So it's not necessarily that we desire war, but there are circumstances where war is mandated or necessary. Imagine to yourself, and of course, the fact that people hate war so much allowed a Hitler to rise in Germany and all that destruction to take place. And had they dealt with it immediately, and they were in a position to deal with it immediately, I'll never forget that when I read Churchill's history of World War II, he mentions that Roosevelt had asked him if he had a name for the war they just finished waging, and Churchill, without hesitation, said, "The unnecessary war."
Appeasement. Appeasement.
Well, well, that's what happened initially, right? Chamberlain appeased Hitler.
Yep. Well, you can have that, sure, and you can have that. Why not? Take Poland. Who cares?
That's exactly, or Czechoslovakia, even more, by the way. Czechoslovakia was where it all started. It was terrible, just terrible, because what happened?
Austria, the Anschluss. It's like, good grief.
But again, that happened after, right? Didn't it? If I'm not mistaken, I think
First thing, I think,
Czechoslovakia was divided up because Russia and Poland at the time and Germany all figured they'd gain dividing up at Czechoslovakia. Anyway, but to try to answer Ken's question, war is not our go-to place, but you have to understand that there are times when you have the alternative is worse. Okay, I mean, listen, if this is a fair comparison, do you ever want to amputate somebody? Do you ever want to amputate someone? The answer is no, you don't. Okay, but there are times when amputation will allow them to survive.
Okay? I mean, a limb or something. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I meant by amputation.
Oh, okay.
Like there are times when you can have diabetes to such an extent where sepsis starts to set in and you're going to lose the person. It's terrible. It's terrible, Ken. But life, unfortunately, this is this world, right? And there are times when this world presents us with those alternatives. So I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.
Thank those who